morning this morning, and welcome back to the OHIO podcast. This is going to be a comparing the 2025 season to 2003 and 2015 edition of the OHIO podcast. Do us a big favor if you don't mind, everybody, and smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Ring the bell. Get notified so that way you don't miss any time we go live or we drop videos like this one on your lap, as well as making sure you put a comment down in the comment section below. Both Alex and I would like to know what you think about what we think down in the comment section below. And as you can see, I'm not alone this morning. I am joined by Alex Bryan. He is known as King Buckeye. Welcome to the OHIO podcast. Welcome back, I should say, Alex.
Yeah, thanks for having me once again. I can't wait to talk about this topic. When you brought it up to me, I was like, it's a pretty important topic because in both of those years after Natty's in 02 and 2014, we thought, well, we have a pretty good chance to repeat. And, obviously things didn't go that way for various reasons. So it's definitely going to be interesting to highlight what this upcoming season could be for Ohio State in comparison.
Yeah, it absolutely could be. So Ohio State's won 9 national championships. At least they are credited to winning 9 national championships in their long storied history. You go back and you look at the ones that 42 was the first one. All the ones, I think there was 5 that Woody Hayes won in his time. You've got the last 3 in our lifetime in 02 and 15 or 14, and then again here this past year in 24. And so, that being said, you would think at some point, given the history of Ohio State and the fact we've won 9, at some point we would have won back to back, but that's just not the case. It's never been done, which is just wild to think about.
They got close.
Yeah.
In 1969, but of course, one Bo Schembechler had to Benedict Arnold and start coaching the team up north, and it stopped us from having a three-peat back then. So we've been this close. You think one of these times it would happen, but you never know. Hopefully in our lifetime.
Well, if we would have won in 69, we would have three-peated because they had one in 68 too. So,
yep.
I mean, they usually don't. Back in Woody's day, they didn't go a long period of time between national championships. You had 54, 57, 61, 68, and 70. So 5 of them in the span of 16 seasons there. And then, of course, the drought happened 32 years before Tressel pulled it off in 2002. But in our lifetime, Alex, we remember the last 3, and so
hard to forget.
Yeah, I don't know your age, but I was actually in 2001. I was a sophomore at Ohio State, so
I was 10 years old.
Okay, so I'm a little older than you. So that one was magical to you then as a kiddo.
Oh yeah, it was great. And I remember it very vividly as a 10-year-old. I was watching it with my dad, and my brother actually called for a ride from his friend's house, and my dad was not happy because obviously biggest game of the year. Why are you walk home at that point, right? So, I was just like, don't worry, I'll watch it for you. I'll fill you in on what happens. And of course, I believe he missed the Maurice Clarett strip. So missed a pretty big play in that game because of my brother. So.
Well, and there's another video right there. The debate between a more important play, that one or Jack Sawyer's strip sack and scramble.
We talked about that on that last show.
You guys brought that up. So that being said, okay, so you're 11 years old going into 2003. I'm actually a junior in college.
Okay.
And the off season is what I remember the most. That kind of derailed that season in 2003.
Yeah.
You've got your number 1 star in Maurice Clarett trying to declare for the NFL draft and all of that hoopla surrounding that offseason that really became kind of a distraction. Now credit to Sean Schrock. He asked Tim Anderson this when he was interviewing Tim back on the Buckeye Lounge a couple months ago. He asked him, was that was that a distraction to the 2003 team? Of course, Tim said no, it really wasn't. You know, we were going with the guys in the locker room, and so I went back and took a quick look again just to refresh my memory of who was on that team, who was coming back, who was on that team in 2003. Of course, you had at quarterback, you had the returning quarterback of Craig Krenzel. So he was the starter again. He was a senior in 2003. You had at wide receiver, you had Michael Jenkins, one of the the best wide receivers in the history of Ohio State. You had some really good freshmen on that team who really weren't getting much time.
Right.
But you know, you had Bam Childress at wide receiver as well. Drew Carter was there. And then you look at running back Lydell Ross ended
Wide
up
arose.
he ended up kind of becoming the kind of go to at that point after
Yeah.
Maurice, steps down or doesn't play. Ben Hartsock came back, the senior tight end. He
Mm-hmm.
was back for his senior run. And then you had some offensive line. The offensive line really was what kind of turned over from 2002. Alex Stepanovich was back.
Yeah.
He anchored the line as the senior captain on the offensive line. Rob Sims was a sophomore. He was going to get some run that season.
Yep.
Nick Mangold was a sophomore. He was at guard, if I remember correctly,
I think
to
so. Yeah.
to start out that year. And then you had Doug Dadish was a freshman, and Kirk Barton was a freshman as well. And so that was kind of it was a very young offensive line in 2003. And
Mm-hmm.
then and then you had some very talented freshmen who would later on become who we now know them as Anthony Gonzalez, right? He
Yep.
was a young freshman. Santonio Holmes was a redshirt freshman that year. You had Troy Smith was a redshirt freshman. Justin Zwick was a redshirt freshman.
We don't
Uh,
talk about him. We don't talk about Justin.
so that was kind of the offensive side of the ball. Now on the defensive side of the ball in 2003, you had some big guys returning as well. You had Tim Anderson, like I just mentioned, for his fifth year, All American defensive tackle, anchoring the up front on the defensive line. You had Simon Frazier, was a junior at end. You had Dustin Fox on the back end of that defense. He was a junior at cornerback. Let's see here. See if I can remember any of these other names here that I knew play. Oh, Jay Richardson,
Yep.
defensive end, right? Nate Sally was a redshirt sophomore at safety. Anthony Schlegel was a junior, transferred in. And then, of course, Bobby Carpenter and AJ Hawk were sophomores. So they were getting their first run at linebacker. Um, so Will Smith was the big name on defense.
Yep.
Will Smith. So he was a captain, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Darian Scott was another name that was on that roster. So it wasn't like they lost all the talent in 2002. A lot of these guys played as juniors and
Yep.
or sophomores in 2002, were on the team, had significant minutes and times. Now they're coming back in 2003 for their senior, junior years. They're upperclassmen. This is our last hurrah. And I remember the expectations being really high going into that offseason.
And let's not forget the most important player outside of what would have been Maurice Clarett on that entire roster, the greatest Buckeye of all time, Mike Nugent, was on that team. So
He was money, dude.
the greatest kicker we've ever seen was there. Yeah, that there was so much back. And what that 2003 season really highlighted was how important Maurice Clarett was for 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we already knew that, right? But it was really shown in 2003 just how important he was because that year started off very similar to the prior to 2002 where we had a lot of close games early. A lot of people, including myself, will remember that NC State game that went to 3 overtimes with Phillip Rivers.
Yep.
That was a lot closer for comfort than it should have been, obviously. But they had like 5 home games to start that year,
Well,
and
and the week before that, Alex,
yep,
they beat San Diego State at home by 3 points.
yep. So
So it was like,
yeah, it really echoed the previous year because we had some close call like with Cincinnati early and stuff like that, but it just seemed like games were a lot tighter than 2002. So you kind of got a caught in Bowling Green. We only beat them by 7. So early on, you kind of got a sense like, okay, this team is still good, but it's clear that they're missing something. And then it all came to a head in Camp Randall on one fateful October night. And I remember where I was during that game vividly. I was at a bowling alley and I was throwing a fit because we were losing. So um, it just once we lost that game, you were like, okay, we're not out of it, but you could tell the magic of this team wasn't as there. And then, of course, unfortunately, Jim Tressel's only loss to the team up north
yeah.
comes at the end of the season, which completely kills the dream of repeating at that point. So it definitely showed how important Maurice Claret was. And to your point, as you mentioned, that entire offseason prior to that year was just Maurice Claret drama. And, what happened with him, and he got dismissed from the team. And, then he sues to get himself eligible for the NFL draft, and it goes in the supplemental draft, and it was just a whole thing. And unfortunately, to me, I feel like that whole Claret thing went way too far. I don't think we needed to dismiss him from the team from stuff like that. But he had some behavioral attitude issues back then as well. He thankfully has turned his life around today and is a way better person and all that good stuff. So, um, but yeah, man, what a just a blown opportunity for that team, because the very next year they set an NFL draft record for the most players from one school in one draft. So
Mm-hmm.
the talent was there all across the board.
100%. It definitely was there. Stick a pin in this right here, guys. So, and then we're gonna come back to this, I think, when we circle back around. But they ended up going, if I'm not mistaken, they won. What was it? What were they? A 10-2, and then they won their bowl game to
Yep.
make it to go 11-2,
Yep.
because they beat Kansas State and Tempe.
Yep.
But they go 10-2, and they go, or no, they win 10-2 in the regular season, 6-2 in the Big Ten, one game behind the Loserines to tie for the Big Ten championship. Stick a
Yep.
pin in that. I have a thought on that when we get to it in 2025's team. Let's go now to 2015, Alex. Now, I don't know if there's ever been, maybe, and this is before your time, probably. 1998 was probably the biggest disappointing season in Ohio State history, followed
Yep.
very closely by the 2015 team.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
Um, I think hands down 98, maybe even 96,
Yeah.
but
96 is
definitely
up there.
98.
Yeah.
That was the best team in college football, easily.
Yeah.
And then Nick Saban spoils the party, and it's you go on to beat Texas A&M in a bowl game, and it's like you would have won a national championship if you wouldn't have stubbed your toe against a inferior opponent
Yeah.
in Michigan State. But 2015, they had everybody back, Alex. I remember the media, sports talk radio, even some of the national media talking about how Urban Meyer, his team, his season was going to be 2015, but this was in 2014. We're going to play all these young kids. They're going to get all this experience, but 2015 is going to be the year,
Yep.
right? And then 2014 happens. Okay, you got it starts off with a terrible news in the off season in fall camp when
Yep.
your boy Braxton Miller goes down
My boy.
with an injury that finished his quarterback career.
Yep.
So then in walks JT Barrett. Those of you who know me and know this show know my feelings on JT Barrett. I think
I've
he's
been
one of
told.
I feel he's one of the gutsiest leader and best leaders Ohio State's ever had. But as far as quarterbacks, he's not my cup of tea. He was definitely Urban's. He was Urban's cup of tea, man. He was the perfect quarterback to run Urban's offense. The perfect quarterback to run Urban's offense.
Literally the best quarterback when it came to the read option I've ever seen. Never,
I'm not
never made the wrong decision ever. It
never.
was
I'm not going to argue that. I
yeah.
agree with you 100%.
Yep.
So JT Barrett walks in, but he's a redshirt freshman, man. And you're like, how's this going to work with all this young talent? You got Zeke Elliott at running back, right? We at the time, we don't know who this guy is. Like,
We knew what he was capable of though, because we saw him against Florida A&M the year prior in 2013, and I remember being at that game with my buddy. I had won tickets for it, and we were looking at him. We were like, oh god, he's going to be a stud. Like we get it. It's Florida A&M, but boy, his cutting ability, his speed, just his build. You could just tell he was going to be something special. So we knew what he was. We knew what he had in him, but we didn't know how it would translate into a starting role.
I felt like his rise, you had, let's go back to 2003
Yep.
or 2002. Sorry. You had Maurice Claret explode
Yep.
early. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
right off the bat. I
Yep.
felt like Zeke's was more gradual, and
Definitely.
then when he gets to the end of the season in 2014, it was like this is a all-star right here. But
Yeah.
this is a team that had Michael Thomas at wide receiver, right? You've got uh, just going down the list here of players that were probably, I'm trying to remember who were starting here for Ohio State at the beginning of the year. Um, let's see here. Who was the other receiver?
We had Jalen Marshall was on that team.
Was he starting though?
I don't know if he was starting per se. We had a lot of young wide receivers
Yeah,
like
you had
Curtis
Noah
Samuel.
Brown. Noah Brown.
Yeah, Curtis Samuel
Um,
was a sophomore on that team. Johnny Dixon was a redshirt freshman. I don't
Jeff
know how much.
Green. Jeff Green was a senior, redshirt senior. He walked on,
Yep.
but he played.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anyways, the offense was just loaded, dude. And Nick Vanette was a senior tight end.
Yep.
Nick Vanette was a senior tight end. Offensive line again. We didn't know who these guys were at the time. At least I don't remember. Taylor Decker was the household name. But Pat Elflein was a redshirt junior that year, and
Yep.
so I think he was getting a start for the first time. Um, Billy Price was a redshirt sophomore. We didn't really know who he was yet. You did have Jacoby Boren. He was starting
Yep.
on that line, but this was kind of a who are these guys type of season. We didn't know going into that year.
I
Same
feel
thing with
dumb. Devin Smith.
duh.
I'm in Massillon. That should have been like instant for me. Duh.
Thank you. Everybody's yelling at us. Everybody's yelling Devin Smith at us right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Defensively, dude, it was again a very young but talented group of guys. You had Raekwon McMillan at linebacker. I remember him going, "Who's this guy?" You had Von Bell was a junior that year at safety. Uh, Eli Apple was a redshirt sophomore. Cam Howard, Cameron Howard, Cam Howard, was on that team. He was a defensive back. Let's see who was else starting or started that season. Tyvis Powell, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
at safety, was out in the defensive backfield. Of course, the household name Joshua Perry was a senior at linebacker as well.
Yep.
But the household name for me on defense was obviously Joey Bosa. By the
Mm-hmm.
middle of that season, we knew this kid's going to be a stud.
Yep.
And so, what we didn't know about Ohio State at the beginning of the season, well, we knew by the end of the season because they go on this magical run. And of course, just to recap real quick, JT Barrett goes down with an injury against the team up north. In comes 12 gauge Cardale Jones. The rest is history. They crush Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, which they absolutely had to do if they were going to get in to the 14 playoff. Then they beat Alabama, right? The the 85 yards to the heart of the South, and then Oregon just felt like anticlimactic, for a lack of a better term. Like once you beat Alabama, it's like you've won the national championship. I know you still got to go out there and play and win it, but it felt like this team had already
Played
done
some of
that.
our worst football that night too against Oregon, and
I mean,
still won by
tons of
22.
turnovers, tons of
Like 4.
turnovers.
And that was funny too, because the game prior, Florida State turned it over 5 times and got absolutely destroyed. And then Urban Meyer hears the score during the press conference after beating Bama, and he goes, "Oh God, all right, well, we got to get ready. We got to go get ready right now." And then we turned the ball over 4 times and still win by 22. Blows my mind.
Just dominant up front in that game. We just
Yeah.
dominated them up front. Now, we say all that to say, going into 2015, dude, the expectations on that team, because they
Astronomical.
were almost all back, man.
Yep.
Preseason number one, you are expected to win a national championship. All the talent is there, and here's another thing, another pin I want to point into this before we go into the season here and talk about it. There was some turnover in the coaching staff.
A lot like 03, where we lose Maurice Claret, and basically we didn't know then, but we know now the season was virtually, we weren't repeating at that point because we lost the most important player to our team. Urban Meyer makes a very fatal promotion in which, rumor has it, he knew wasn't the greatest move he can make, but he didn't want Ed Warner to go somewhere else. So he decided, I'm going to make him the OC so he doesn't leave. And yeah, when you promote a guy to OC who doesn't know how to call plays, well, you get 2015. It's honestly a miracle we lost one game that whole year with him as OC.
That really just tells you how talented they were.
Yeah.
It's well documented that he not only couldn't call plays, he literally, like, no, we're not saying that figuratively. No, he literally couldn't call plays. He couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Zach Smith has well documented how this guy could not call plays.
Yeah. And how not liked he was by even his own group of players.
Yeah.
The guy is just a complete, douchebag. And yet nobody stepped up at any point during that season and said, "You know what? Let's hand over play calling somebody else. You could still be OC, but let's try this." Would have saved us.
Yeah,
maybe.
There was some blowouts. Obviously, the opening game, you go to Blacksburg, you beat Virginia Tech, the famous spin move by Braxton. Do you still have visions of that in your dreams?
And I gotta speak on this because after that game, I guaranteed to people he was winning the Heisman. Little did I know Ed Warner would rob him of the Heisman after that. But just think about it. He was a wide receiver. We ended up using him on like punt returns and stuff like that. And we could have had plays for him to be a quarterback and make plays that way. And we used him in the run game. There were so many all-purpose yards Braxton Miller could have had, and he would have went untouched for the Heisman had Tom Herman been his OC or Ryan Day. It would have been, nobody would have touched him that entire year stat-wise because those two offensive coordinators would have used him appropriately to get him the Heisman. It breaks my heart to this day. Breaks my heart.
What could have been?
What could have been?
Yeah. You have some anomalies on this season. 20-13 win against Northern Illinois at home. What?
Yeah, that was rough.
A 7-point win at Indiana,
where we've trailed most of the game.
Yeah, that was a Zeke just give me the darn ball and let me run over
Yep.
these guys in the second half game.
Yep.
You scrolling down here, you had a 14-point win against Minnesota at home,
Yeah.
and then the nightmare game, November 21st, Michigan State,
Yep.
who comes in with their backup quarterback
Yep.
and beats Ohio State 17-14 off a field goal in the rain, where you handed the ball to the best player on your roster at running back in the second half 2 times.
It's funny because when I heard Zach Smith's story about that game and how he gave Ed Warner at halftime a list of 9 plays just to get Michael Thomas the ball to get something going, and how none of them were called the entire second half, it just makes you more infuriated about that loss. I get it. It was a monsoon outside. What passing were you going to do during that game? But you could have did something. And to your point, Zeke Elliott, I still have vivid memories of seeing him on TV in Urban's face, like, get me the ball, get me the ball. And then we just don't. And then after the game, of course, the interview with Ezekiel Elliott saying, I'm gone after this year, blah, blah, blah. He was not the Zeke that we were used to seeing, the humble Zeke. He was very much star mode Zeke. And thankfully, we were able to regroup after that. But, being the 14 playoff era, the
Yep.
Natty run was over unless
Yep.
MSU got upset,
Yep.
which they didn't.
Yeah, because we end up dropping to eighth and out of contention.
Yeah.
You go to Ann Arbor and crush the Wolverines 42-13, and
Yep.
then we go back to Arizona once again, and you just mollywomp Notre Dame
Yep. Dog walk 'em.
44-28. And you sit there and you think to yourself, how in the world did we not
And
capitalize on that?
keep in mind that was Harbaugh's first year, so that was trouble with the snap year against MSU.
Yeah.
And after that game, we're all laughing. We're like, this is the best thing ever. This is great. And it was our fault first, but it ended up costing us a trip to Indianapolis in the long
Yeah.
run, because if
So
MSU loses that game, doesn't matter if we lose to MSU, we're still going to Indy.
funny thing about that, I was actually at the Ohio State Penn State game, which was an 8 o'clock kick. They played the trouble with the snap on the big screen while we were all waiting for the game to get started.
Yeah.
And the place erupted.
Yeah.
And then we ended up beating Penn State that night. It
Yeah.
was not a pretty game, but we ended up beating them. That was the dark night in the shoe. That was the first time they revealed the
Yeah.
All Blacks. But
Yeah.
anyways, those are our reflections. Now, let's fast forward to this year. Those are the 2 times in our lifetime we can reflect on the years after and
Yep.
what could have been. Ohio State now goes into 2025 defending reigning national champions. We have had a very quiet off season as far as
Thankfully.
no major injuries that's been talked about.
Started out a little loud with the Jim Knowles thing. Started out a little loud.
That I still that was at the. I mean, we hadn't even shine the trophy yet, and he's
Yep.
gone.
It was like that. And
Yeah.
just everything changed all of a sudden, which I
Yeah.
actually wasn't sad to see him go. I was like, all right, would I have liked him to go to anywhere but like Penn State or somebody in the Big Ten? Sure. But hey, it is what it is. There's been those rumors the past few years since he's been here that there's been like friction with him and Larry
Mm-hmm.
Johnson, stuff like that. I know Wolverine fans say, oh, Matt Patricia, well, get ready to get shredded every week. I think he'll do a great job. I think he'll end up being one of the best coordinators in the country, just because he's way more aggressive and the kids kind of bond with him a lot easier, and he knows how to get the best out of players. So, But yeah, it did start out pretty loud, but yeah, it's been quiet
Yeah.
pretty much ever since.
But I would say the biggest difference, this is a big difference. We lost a lot more starters
Yeah,
this from last year's team than they did in 2003 and 2015.
absolutely.
So we don't have nearly the amount of returning production as we did in those two previous attempts at repeating. So that's one big major difference that I can kind of see.
Yep.
Let me share a similarity now with you that I noticed.
Okay.
You had major coaching turnover in 2015 for the
Yep.
worse.
For the
Now,
worst,
you just highlighted Jim Knowles. It's not the only coaching turnover here. Chip Kelly's gone, offensive play caller.
which sucked. Oh,
Yeah.
sucked.
And now in his place is Brian Hartline. Now, I am not going to compare Brian Hartline as a play caller to Ed Warner. I think Brian Hartline in his sleep
He's
can
got to be
call plays
better,
better
right?
than
He's
Ed
got to be.
Warner.
Got to be better because he's going to want to get his guys the ball, which love that. Ed Warner was an offensive line coach. Who's he getting the ball there? He's just like reading off a play sheet, thinking he's doing something good. Which is why I'm surprised we beat the team up north in Notre Dame as bad as we did. I was like, oh, well, that just kept his job for another year. Great, and then we saw what happened because of that. So,
Yeah. So
uh,
I would say that that's a similarity there. We have
yeah,
some coaching turnover that gives you some questions. Whether now, again, a lot of Buckeye fans, just like you, Alex, believe Matt Patricia is going to be good. He's going to be fine. They're
yep,
excited about that. But he's got three returning starters on defense.
yep,
You've got, see if I can remember them here, Sonny Styles at linebacker, Davison Igbenogson at cornerback, and Caleb Downs at safety. That's it. Now,
yep,
three really good players. Three really good players, especially
yep.
Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles. Possible two All Americans here. But you're replacing eight starters. Is that a good thing or bad thing in your mind for Matt Patricia to kind of, because you don't have these guys who I've done it before, who are you? I'm not going to listen to you. Like, I don't like that play. It could be a positive.
It's an insane positive so far, because what we've heard out of like spring practice and stuff is that players are just really like engaged, more engaged than they have been in the previous years because of how Matt Patricia coaches. Like CJ Hicks, we've been wanting him to bust on the scene for a few years now. And all of a sudden, we're hearing like he's really amped up that Matt Patricia's there. He's going to get used to come off the edge, get to blitz the quarterback a lot. So Matt Patricia is the kind of guy who's going to try to put his players in the best positions, whereas Jim Knowles is like, this is my system, fit it. And, you know, and it also depends on the position group here, right? Where the D line is the thing we're worried about the most coming in this season when it comes to the defense. Not a lot of depth there. Very little experience, not like completely inexperienced. But I honestly think, and this might be a hot take, I think we'll end up having a better set of defensive ends going forward. Not because JTT and Jack Sawyer weren't great players, but we didn't get the most out of them at all because of who we had as our DCs in Kerry Coombs and then Jim Knowles. I think with Matt Patricia as coach, Larry Johnson's unit's going to be able to feast more than they have in quite some time. And I think the guys that we have currently on roster are going to be able to produce better because of it. Now, linebackers, Cody Simon, great player. Love the guy. Captain. I think we upgrade with Arbel Reese. I think he's going to be a freak. And then the secondary, I'm not worried because we got Jermaine Matthews, who, to be honest with you, should be and probably is better than Denzel Burke. And then we're hearing good things about Lorenzo Styles that could fit in that Jordan Hancock nickel position. So I'm not worried about the defense. I'm really not. The biggest thing I'm worried about is offensive line. And if that can work, who's to say we can't go and win the whole thing again? But that's a big if. It's a big if.
Personally, I'm pretty high on the offensive line, and as far as off seasons go, this is the most confident I have felt about an Ohio State offensive line in quite a long time. They looked really good during the spring game, and
I
now
agree.
I understand it's a spring game, but if you compare how they looked this spring game to how they've looked in the last three spring games, buddy, it's all good right now from the offensive line. Um, Now another thing that I kind of want to look at is let's look at the quarterback position here. What's different about this year than in 2003 and in 2015 is you've got a brand new starting quarterback you're breaking in.
Yep.
You had returning quarterbacks, and in 2015's case, you had three returning quarterbacks on that team
Technically.
that
Yep.
all played and were all good, and Braxton Miller,
Yep.
JT Barrett, and Cardell Jones.
Yep.
Um, so that immediately, I think, kind of sets you back slightly. You agree or disagree?
I agree only because we didn't do a good enough job last year of getting say in reps in games. I get Devin Brown was there. He was the backup. And this is one thing I've harped on Ryan Day for the last couple years at least is that he doesn't do the best job at building for the future. Getting those guys reps in games during the season that aren't starters, that is so valuable to building not just for the next year, but even for the year after that. Like you're usually trying to build like at least 2 years ahead of time by getting these guys reps. And there would be a lot of games where we're blowing a team out and we're not getting other guys in until mid to late fourth quarter. What's that going to do for you? That's not enough reps. You see what Texas was doing with Arch Manning. They were getting him reps. They got
Mm-hmm.
him reps in a playoff game. Granted, didn't work out so well for him. Um, but if we had gotten saying some more reps, I'd be a lot more comfortable, especially with Texas week one. You think that would be like, okay, well, he might be our guy next year. And even Kindholz could have got him in some of that time too. So um, I get wanting to reward Devin Brown for staying, but at that point, you kind of knew he probably was never going to be the guy. So get the guys that could be the guy in the future, those reps. But yeah, we're behind the eight ball when it comes to that.
Yeah. Let's going back over now to the offensive side of the ball. You got Brian Hartline as the offensive coordinator this year, so something similar to what you can experience in 2015 in a new play caller.
Yep.
Um, you know, the quarterback situation is obviously different. That's new. We're replacing basically it's a new backfield. Trey and Q are both gone to the NFL. So what's the running back room going to look like? Wide
Similar to
rec-
O2, kind of.
yeah,
We
yeah, good point. Lydell Ross did not have a bad season by any.
Yeah, he did.
He played. I think he played well. Um, in fact, if we get a Lydell Ross type of season from this backfield, I'm going to be pretty happy with that because I'm banking on the fact that kind of similar to 2003 and 2015, we've got a ton of production, maybe even much better, which is hard to believe, coming back in the wide receiver room.
Yep.
Because you stop and think about it, man. Michael Jenkins was back in 2003,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
You had Michael Thomas back in 2015.
Which Ed Warner robbed him of a Buckeye tree. He got robbed too that year, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna argue with you
Oh.
on that one.
Oh.
Uh, I mean, so I think if there's one thing we all can agree on, it's that the wide receiver room this year is just
It's
Jeremiah
better than
Smith,
it's better than last year. I'll say it. It's better than last year's.
which is hard to say,
Even
hard
with
to
losing
believe.
Emeka, which Emeka's great, it's better than last year. Brandon
Yeah,
Ennis is going to be a stud. We got Mylan Graham. That's an up and comer. That's a name to watch. Obviously the alien he is, Jeremiah Smith, being the main receiver now, basically. Not that he wasn't last year, but technically by roster he wasn't. And Carnell Tate, of course, I expect him to have a big year. And there's some other guys too. his name escapes me right now, but he had a pretty big sprain, and he lost his black stripe. And I think it was Quincy Porter.
Yeah, Quincy Porter. Mm-hmm.
I remember
Five
watching
star.
him.
Yeah.
I remember watching him during the open practice they had, and anytime the ball was thrown his way, he caught it, no matter if he was contested or not. And I said, "Boy, I'm like, that guy looks really good." And then, of course, that day he loses his black stripe. So, um, there's freaks all over that roster, wide receiver. It's way better than 03 and 15 by a landslide. And I think Michael Thomas and Michael Jenkins would tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think they would deny that.
yeah,
They would. So that's something that can be comparable.
yep,
All right. I told you to put a pin in what they did in 2003. I'm going to make a statement, Alex. I want to get your response from it.
go.
I am sitting at Ohio State looking at this schedule this year. I feel like 10-2 with a win over Michigan is the mark here. It might, depending on the two losses, it might get you back to the Big Ten championship. Maybe not. It definitely gets you in the college football playoff.
Yeah,
And if you can beat the team up north, you right or wrong, you're breaking in a new quarterback. 10-2 feels right to me.
Texas and who?
Illinois.
I get it. I get
I
it.
don't want to say Washington, although
Yeah,
that might be a more difficult place to play. I
yeah.
just don't think Washington's roster is going to be able to beat us.
They're a dark horse for me. I think they're probably like an 8-win team around there at least.
I refuse to say Penn State.
Illinois, I get it. Penn State would be like the one for me where if there was if we did beat the team up north, that would be the next one. Just because people said, especially Wolverine fans, people said Ryan Day will never win a national championship. Look at how soft he is. Blah blah blah. He'll never beat the team up north again, which he hasn't, unfortunately, yet. But he did win a national title, so we can't never say never, technically, even when it comes to James Franklin. But obviously, until you see it, we just got to kind of go with what we know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, Texas is a loss just because of what I said earlier, the rep difference between quarterbacks. It's absolutely coin flip. We could win that game,
Sure, yeah,
absolutely.
100%. And
Um,
I've been saying it. If we come out and we win that game, buckle up.
yeah, buckle up. Especially if Julian Sand has a great day and he just looks sharp. Then right off the bat, I'm like, we can go undefeated. We absolutely can. But I've said 10-2 as well, Texas being the one. And unfortunately, until Ryan Day shows me he can do it, the team up north.
I feel like that one is just feels different for a couple reasons. Number one, I think he's got kind of a confidence monkey off his back.
That's the hope. That's the hope that winning the Natty gets him like, okay, if I just coach every game like I did the playoffs, no matter what the team, I can beat anybody. So that's the hope. But unless I see cocaine Ryan Day, as they call him, from 2019 in the playoffs in that game again and stop looking scared and overanalyzing everything and stopping his own team from succeeding, I can't in good conscience keep saying that's an automatic dub. I just can't do it. I hate even saying it. It makes me want to wash my mouth out with soap, even thinking that it could happen. But I need him to like lock in. Once he does it once, I honestly don't think he's going to lose for a long time again in that game.
Yeah,
I think he'll go
dominoes
on a win.
fall.
I think he'll go a win streak on his own at that point. Once he gets that monkey off his back, getting the
Hmm.
natty monkey off his back's great, but he knows that's still that'll still get the fan base on you pretty hard if you don't win that game again.
Hmm.
So we'll see
Yeah,
what happens.
I've highlighted 4 games this season that I feel are are critical for Ohio State. You got Texas, you got Illinois, you got Penn State, and you got the team up north. And if you go 2-2 and you win the rest of your games, you're in the college football playoff. Now,
Yeah.
if it depends on who those losses are, that will determine if you go to the Big Ten championship or not. And so, if one of them is Texas, and you've only got one other loss in conference, then there's a very good chance you might end up at the back at the Big Ten championship. But at the end of the day, it's about getting the college football playoff now. And
Yeah.
so, which 10 and
Our
2 is going to get you there.
Yeah, our scenarios are pretty similar because if we were only a one-loss Big Ten team, and let's say Penn State loses to us, that's one loss for them in conference, and Oregon has to go to Happy Valley. I think Penn State wins that game just because of whiteout and Oregon's first time in a whiteout. So in my scenario where we lose to Texas and team up north, we only have one loss. They only have one. Oregon has one. Three-way tie via tiebreakers. Oregon's eliminated. We get a rematch with Penn State and Indianapolis. It should be an easier year to get to Indianapolis for us. So we gotta whether we win that last game or not, we gotta get there. That's a next step forward if we can get back to Indianapolis. But obviously, I would like to take that next step forward that last week in November. That would be really great.
So, like I said back when we were talking in 2003, that team ended up going 10 and 2 in the regular season and winning their bowl game, but they finished the regular season ranked 7th in the country. So they would have gone to the college football playoff. And I feel like this team this year, Alex, feels to me more similar to 2003 than it does 2015. Do you agree?
By what measure?
Talent, expectations, just kind of the feel of it. I don't feel this team is anywhere close to the roster talent we had in 2015. But could be wrong, but I just don't. I feel like 2015's roster was experienced juniors. This team feels more like
I could see that.
sophomore-ish. There's some good juniors, but more
I could see that.
sophomore-ish.
Yeah, I mean, in 2003, were we the overall favorite to win the Natty? I don't believe so. Oklahoma started out the year number one, and pretty
We
much
were
only
number
because
2. We
yeah,
were ranked number 2 to
and pretty
start
much
off.
only because we had lost Maurice Claret. Otherwise, we probably are won to start the year. Um, but yeah, obviously 2015, it was this team has to repeat, right? So yeah, I could see that. It's more so 03-ish than 15 for sure. And this is the first Ohio State national championship team that's coming off a loss to the team up north coming in. So got to
Good
overcome
point.
that.
There's a difference there. That you're right. That is a difference.
Yep.
I didn't think about that one.
Yep. So they got a lot to prove, and I like Day's mentality on it. He says, in the players like how they want all the natty stuff taken down. That's not their natty, and how Day says we're not defending national champions. We're attacking national champions. We're attacking the next one. It's a whole new slate. So there's a good mentality going on with this team, and that Texas game will tell a lot. It will tell an exponential amount.
100%. Now, there's one more thing I want to mention, Alex. I want to get your take on. This is something else I've been thinking about. And it's not so much in relation to 2003 or 2015, although it is kind of close to the 2015 team, and that is this. Like I mentioned with the 2014 team, everybody preseason wise was looking at how this roster would look a year later in 2015, and then they go out and they went ahead and they won it in 2014.
Yep.
I think if you look at this roster, how it's laid up, how they've built it, and what they've done with NIL, and how NIL to them is about player retention, there's a very good chance that the offseason a year from now, they're going to spend a lot of NIL and retaining this roster and trying to run back what they did in 2024 by saying, okay, let's keep you guys all here for one more run at this thing and have the best roster in college football next season. I can kind of see how 2025 would set up to make 2026 look like that. And if that's the case, then this is 2014. This is the year no one's expecting it. It's next year you're expecting it.
That's a good
Why
point.
not just go out there and do it now and win it now?
Yeah, I've been telling people because of my prediction on what the season will be, and the turnover on the roster, which obviously Wolverine fans lead you to believe we're going to go 8-5 just because they did, because they don't reload like we do, and they're not an elite program. Hate to break it to you, but I keep telling people 2025 is probably not the year. If it happens, great. 2026 is the one I look at because we'll have Julian Sand experienced, Jeremiah Smith still there. You probably lose Caleb Downs and stuff like that, but and Sonny Styles and all that stuff. But you'll have a lot more experience that next year. So I think too that they'll try to exercise some of that NIL. You're probably not keeping Caleb Downs. We can just call him gone. He's gonna go to the pros. But if you can keep a large amount of those guys that would leave and that don't have to leave, yeah, 2026 is more so the year for me than 2025 would be for sure.
That's
Absolutely.
kind of what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah.
And it's but that's what everyone was thinking in 2014. And they went out and they won it. So there's a
Yep.
similarity there. There's a path there is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, this is why I've been saying it this way. If this team comes out and they beat Texas, that is a huge confidence momentum builder for these young players.
Yep. It is.
Huge.
And it does sound like, thankfully, maybe Ross Bjork has figured this NIL thing out, because there's been a whole slew about that and rumors of him not letting Ryan Day deal with the NIL thing well and whatever it is. It seems like that's been clarified for him now and figured out. So maybe we won't be like following all these rules that nobody else but us seems to be following. So hopefully we can start winning more of these recruiting battles too, which will set us up even better for 2006 or 26 and beyond. Um, but I do see the similarities of what you're pointing out with this. Could be like the 2014 that nobody saw coming because they were looking at 2015 type of deal. It's possible. I've ran the scenarios on these things these playoff predictor apps and stuff that I find multiple times. If Ohio State gets seeded right and gets like the right slate in front of them, yeah, it's possible. I think we can get back to the semis at worst. No matter where we're seeded at, I think we'll be like, if we're not a top 4 seed, we'll be like the 5 seed, I think. So it's possible. I'm not going to completely rule it out. It depends on Ryan Day and Julian Sand more so than anything.
Yeah.
Because you brought up earlier the offensive line. I think with Tyler Bowen, we're going to be way better off anyway. And Justin Fry was a great developer. And look at the work he did last year. Good God. One of the hardest jobs in America, and he pulled it off last year. We just got to see how Tyler Bowen develops. And if he can do that, we already know he's a great recruiter. He's out recruited Justin Fry in a matter of months. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if Julian Sand can be that guy, and keep in mind though, Ohio State and those 3 natties that we've mentioned, they didn't need a superstar 5-star quarterback to win those. The most above average
What?
quarterback,
Craig Krenzel wasn't a superstar quarterback?
the most above average guys in recent Ohio State history won those 3 natties.
That's true. I mean, I would put you look at the starting quarterbacks for those national championship teams: Craig Krenzel, Cardell Jones, Will Howard. Right?
Yep.
None of them are C.J. Stroud.
None of them.
None
Not
of
even close.
them. None of them are Justin Fields.
None of them are Troy Smith.
Dwayne Haskins.
None of them are Braxton Miller, really, even. And
Yeah.
he was great for us. So,
Terrell Pryor.
yep.
I mean, I would choose all of those guys.
Over the
As,
3 that won them.
but Yeah. So
Yep.
you're right. It doesn't fall completely on Julian Saint. This
Yeah.
is year
It's important.
one
Yeah.
of him starting, and Will Howard had tons of starting experience, although
Yep.
albeit in with Kansas State, but he did. Cardale was off the bench, but that is what it is at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, that was late season, and then Krenzel didn't start in 2001.
He got put in after Belisari got hurt
Yeah,
and then never let go of the job after that.
yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, Craig Krenzel, I remember watching the entire season. I'm like, well, it's not the prettiest looking toy in the box, but it's getting the job done. And
yeah.
then I was at the 2014 Team Up North game where JT broke his leg, and I looked at my dad. I said, well, it's over. Kiss the playoffs goodbye. And he goes, why? I said, too cool for school. Cardell Jones is up next, and that's not going to work. I've never been happier to be wrong in my life. So, and I actually apologized to him in person when I saw him years ago. I said that about you, and I apologize because clearly there was a lot there, and you know, and then obviously Will Howard. I told people, I said, we don't need a superstar quarterback. All he has to do is get people the ball and not screw up.
Yeah.
And he screwed up a couple times in the season. Obviously, it cost us a couple games, but when we needed him the most, what did he do? He was an ace. So
He
we
he
don't
was
need Julian
he was
Sayin to
winking at the sideline during the national championship
yeah.
game.
We don't need Julian Sayin to be a superstar.
No.
Just get guys the ball, and that's it.
Yep.
And I'm a Packers fan, so Aaron Rodgers is very near and dear to my heart. I will die on any hill for that man. And I don't make this comparison lightly. Julian Sayin's throwing motion and his delivery and everything reminds me so much of Aaron Rodgers. And
Ooh.
that excites me the most. Just his flick of the wrist and being able to just put it wherever he wants it because the muscle memory and the talent and everything's just there. It reminds me of Aaron Rodgers. And that excites me the most. If his height doesn't get in his way, because I hate to break it to people, he's not 6'1. He's like 5'10, 5'11. If that doesn't get in his way, what Jeremiah Smith said about him will come true. He's great. So we'll see.
Any last thoughts or comparisons that you have, Alex, between those two seasons that we mentioned that we talked about in comparison to what we're about to see here in about a month's time?
Well, obviously, 2003, we had some expectations that we could repeat. 2015, obviously, we had the expectation we could repeat. I know a lot of Buckeye fans feel it's possible this year. I think it's a little different feel from that because I don't think the repeat is quite there. But if what you said comes true with like not seeing 2014 coming and this could be a 2014 type of thing, you never know. So I wouldn't take what happens in that Texas game too seriously. If we lose that, we could see him again at some point. But all that matters to me this year personally, because to me, this is a gap year between our next natty, which is hopefully 2026. If it's not this year, just beat the team up north. That's it.
I'm
They,
right there with
they,
you, man.
they need so humbled, and I need Buckeye fans to stop coping and saying, "Oh, that game doesn't matter." Blah blah. It matters all the time. It matters all the time. Period. Doesn't matter if it's a 12-team playoff and that losing to them doesn't stop you anymore. It always matters, folks. Just beat them. If you beat them and whatever happens after that is not natty, sucks, but at least we got that on the right track and we can build off of that going forward. Got to stop losing that game.
Yep. BTB. Beat those bums. That's been
Beat
our
those bums.
hashtag beat the bums. Beat the well, you can fill in whatever you want there with the other B. You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also Just look up the OHIO podcast. You'll find us there. You can go to our website, theohiopodcast.com. We have articles, links, etc. to all of our social media as well as our YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and make sure you give us a comment down in the comment section below. Let us know what you think. Is there anything else about those seasons that we missed that you want to highlight for us? We would love to see that as well. Alex, is there any place anybody can find you or follow you that you would like to share?
You can find me on Facebook, Alex Bryan, or on any other platform at FlyDog92. That's my gamer tag from back in the day, so I've just used it for years. So you can find me there.
Awesome, guys. We'll be doing this more often. I hope you enjoyed it as we get closer to the season. Make sure you check out all the previews we're doing as well. We just dropped Iowa Friday night. I think there's going to be coming up. We've got Northwestern and Nebraska, and then the Big Four: Penn State, Oregon, the team up north, and Ohio State is how we will finish our previews. And all 18 Big Ten schools will be previewed. So make sure you go check that out, everybody. Live show this upcoming Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. Got a great guest coming on as well. So you're not going to want to miss that. And of course, we're going up to Fremont, Ohio to hang out with Big Nut this Saturday as he raises money for his scholarship organization that he runs. And so Sean, myself, Chris, we're going to be up there about around 4 o'clock in between the music acts, hanging out with Buckeye Nation. We're going to get your opinions, shooting some videos, talking Buckeyes, hanging out with Big Nut. It's going to be a good time. Don't miss that as well, guys. Till next time, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH in Carmen, Ohio with all your heart. Alex, here's how we do this. OH!
IO!
Go Bucks!